This is the third dialogue between J. Krishnamurti and David Bohm, and it includes Dr. Parshere at Brockwood Park, 1975.
What do we start on?
Oh, you have some suggestions? No? Well, there are many points. Well, we could either go into the question of thought which is not verbal, or into a question I've been considering during the last week of necessity. That is, what is the relationship of necessity and freedom?
Oh, yes.
Does that seem interesting?
Thought and you said the first one?
Well, thought which is non-verbal.
Non-verbal, yes.
Well, no, it's fairly clear that ordinary thought is dominated by the word, by the order of the word, that one word gives rise to an image, and
yes.
the image gives rise to another word.
A series of verbal associations.
Yes, so therefore, although it's not just the word, it is dominated by the word. I mean, it has now, and we could call that verbal thought.
Yes. Is there a thinking at all without the word?
Well, that's the question.
That's the question, yes.
Now, I have the feeling that there is a kind of thinking without the word.
What is that?
Well, it's hard to explain, but it's a thinking which does not follow in this order in which word gives rise to association and association to word.
I'm not at all sure, I'm just discussing, I'm not at all sure that there is any kind of thinking as we know it without the word, symbol and image. And if there is a thinking, is it thinking according or the process of knowledge, a reaction to knowledge, a continuation of knowledge? And so it is still a verbal remembrance of incidents, symbols, words and images. If there is no verbal thinking at all, then what is thinking? Is there a thinking at all?
Well, it depends on what you mean.
All right. Thinking we mean, don't we, sir? A response of memory, of our conditioning, of verbal associations.
Well, in that case, you define thinking as the word already, so therefore...
Yeah, yes, that's...
If you define it that way, then it's impossible.
But that is thinking, isn't it?
Well, no, I think that, you see, part of our question is how we assign the use of words. What is the clearest way? You see, we're engaged in trying to use words in appropriate or fitting ways. Now, for example, if you say reality is not the same as truth, that's a different way of using words from the common way which identifies reality and truth.
Yes, yes.
Now, the only justification for changing the use of words is that it will make things more clear, you see. It makes our communication more clear.
That is a description.
It's a description, but still there are different... It has advantages to use one description instead of another.
Quite naturally. If I'm describing a house, I must use certain...
And now if you say reality is not the same as truth, then you are using words in a certain way.
Yes.
Which you think will communicate more clearly.
Yes, quite.
Now, therefore, if we raise the question about thinking, you say, are you proposing to define thinking as the response of memory? In which case, there can be no question that there's no non-verbal thought, you see.
That's what I want to get at.
Yes, but
How would you define then, or explain what is thinking?
Yes, well, you see, let's explore whether there can be a kind of imagination, for example, which is not merely the association of words. See, ordinarily, the imagination is stimulated by the word.
Yes.
Now,
word, symbol, and so on.
That's right. Now, I think when somebody has a new insight, then there may appear an imagination.
Is insight imagination?
Not in itself, but it may be expressed. The first step in realizing the insight is maybe imagination.
I see. You're saying through imagination one has insight.
Through imagination one begins to realize the insight, to carry it out.
Sir. I question that.
What?
I question that.
Well,
we are discussing.
Yes.
What is imagination then?
Well, we have to say that imagination may be it is a kind of display of the meaning of whatever is in your mind.
Yes.
You see, now ordinarily we talk about images, but it might be something more general. You see, let's try to put another form of thought. That is, thought is not only the mind works not only explicitly but through the implicit. What is full? The implicit means folded up.
Yes.
And now the implicit doesn't follow in the simple order of words. Do you see? There can be a tremendous range of implications. They're not the same as just simply things strung together by words. Do you follow me?
Yes, I follow, sir.
Now, and therefore, the imagination helps to reveal these implications.
Is insight brought about through imagination, through verbal, symbol, imagination?
Not that it's brought about that way, but it may be displayed and expressed that way.
Insight may express it.
Insight may express itself through
words.
Through imagination.
Through imagination. But is insight different from the word, from the image?
The insight is different from the image, but at the same time, when the image expresses insight, it may be different from the image merely expressing the word.
I have an insight
yes.
into this fact that reality is a process of thinking. A reality is something that you think about or reflect upon, which we agreed the other day. I have an insight into that. And truth is something totally different from that. Insight, that is having a glimpse or of something that is real, and that is true. Both real and true.
Yes, and the question now arises that you want to communicate the insight, and you may want to, you want the insight to work more broadly.
Broadly, I understand that. But is the capacity or the quality of insight a verbal process?
No, that is not a verbal process, but I was saying something else, you see.
Which is what I want to guide
let me give an example and you can consider it. See, at one time, I can remember as a graduate student at California Institute of Technology, that there was a certain problem in mathematics, let's say. And Now, one way to work it out would have involved, say, many steps, a long formula. So now I had an insight that if you could rotate this thing in a certain direction, and then it would be obvious.
Obvious, quite.
Now, that was expressed through the imagination of rotating.
But I'm asking, is that insight which you had brought about by imagination, by...
Well, no, I didn't say it was. I'm saying that it was expressed through imagination.
That insight expresses itself through imagination.
Yes.
Now, how is that insight how does it come about?
Well, we didn't try to say that, you see, that the insight does not come about through thought.
No, that's all I wanted.
But at the same time, there is a thought which may express the insight.
Yes, I understand that.
And I would call that nonverbal thought. I mean, that it would be thought whose content was essentially not arising in the word. You see?
You have an insight.
Yes.
And that insight expresses through words, through images, through symbols. That I understand.
Yes.
That's clear. But is the insight a movement of thought?
No.
No.
No. But you see, there may be. I want to make a distinction between that movement of thought, which is whose order is primarily from that insight, from another movement of thought which comes mostly from mechanical.
Yes, yes.
Right. And I would call that nonverbal thought in the sense.
Which one would you call nonverbal?
When it comes from the insight. When it is expressing insight.
Just a minute, let me get it. When insight expresses itself, that expression is non-verbal, is that it?
No, the expression may be imaginative and then verbal later. For example, your insight about reality and truth was eventually expressed through words.
Words, yes.
Now, I would propose that use of words is different from somebody who just simply had an...
I see. Yes, I understand.
Right. Do you follow me now?
Yes, I follow you. I understand.
I want to distinguish two ways of using words and images. Two ways of using thought.
Quite.
Right?
Is insight separate from thought and separate from action?
Well, what do you mean by separate?
I mean by separate, it is, I have an insight into something. Does that insight express verbally, naturally it does, and action from that insight?
Yes, that follows from the insight.
Follows from the insight. Is that action different from the action of thought?
Yes, from the action which is produced by thought alone, right?
Yes, thought alone.
That's the point I was trying to get at. That there is one kind of process which is thought working on its own.
Yes.
In which the word produces the associated image, and the image produces the next word, and altogether they produce an action.
Yes. That's what I was trying to get
at. That is one. That is one process.
Yes, that's one quite. That is thought, action.
Yeah.
Insight action.
Yes.
The action of thought is different from the action of insight.
Yes.
That's what I want.
Yes. The action which is produced from thought alone.
Yes, I understand that.
Because, all right.
Then what is the relationship between the action of insight and the action of the process of thought?
Well,
is there a relationship?
Not if the process of thought is working alone, there's no relationship. I mean, except...
So you are saying insight, a verbal expression and action, insight, non-verbal action.
No, I don't get that. I mean, there are two forms of insight, is that what you're saying?
Two forms of insight.
There's insight which is expressed verbally or imaginatively, and that leads to action. And there's another insight, you say, which is just acts. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
The insight action, in that there is no division, there is no separation, there is no time interval between insight and action.
Yeah.
The other is insight, expression verbally, and acting.
Well, the verbal expression, in my view, is an action already.
Is already action.
I mean, in other words, we could say that one form of insight may immediately express itself in words.
I'm trying to break it up. I
Yeah.
want to see it. I have an insight into that organization, any form of organization, does not lead to truth. Wait, I'm going. I had an insight to dissolve the order of the star. I had an insight. It was an action taken immediately.
Yes, but in that action, you of course used words and various things.
Of course. But the action born of insight is something totally different from the action born of thought.
Yes, we agree on that.
That is the big.
Yes,
Right.
but my feeling is, say, in the action born of insight, there may arise words, there may arise something else.
Sure.
And in other words, there's not a great distinction according to the requirements. It may express itself one way or another.
I'm not sure.
You see, well, you did use words, for example. Let's take the insight about reality.
Yes, let's stick to that.
And there, of course, it became necessary to put it in words.
Yes.
Which I don't think was fundamentally different from any other action. You see, in other words, that was the appropriate action at that moment.
I think there is a fundamental
What is the
difference.
difference?
That's what I'm trying to get at. Isn't there an action which is non-verbal, non-reasoned out, an action which is not the process of thought? Is there an action which is not in the field of thought? I don't know if I'm making myself clear. Now, let's go back a little bit more. What is action? As we all discussed this. Action is something that is taking place now.
Yes.
Being made, all the rest of it. Acting now. Is that action different from the action which is part of time, part of thought, part of a process?
Yes, well, we have to distinguish, saying if at any stage the action, you want the action to produce, to enter the field of reality, say, to produce a real effect, then you must enter
Of course,
this field,
of course.
you see. And therefore, if you want to communicate the action to other people,
I understand that.
right, now then we're proposing, is there an action which does not enter this
Yes,
field of reality?
I'm not, for the moment, I'm not concerned communicating to others. We are concerned trying to find out if there is an action which is not a process of thought, an action which is of truth, if I can put it, an insight which acts instantly. That's all I want. I want to question that.
Well, perhaps one action that acts instantly is to see the falseness.
Yes. don't want to take images.
Why?
It's difficult to take examples. I have an insight into the fact that people believe in God. I'm taking that as an example. People believe that.
Well, what is the nature of your insight then?
The insight that God is their projection.
Yes, and therefore false.
False. I have an insight. And the belief, if I had a belief in God, drops away instantly.
Yeah.
It is not a process of thought. It's a process of an insight into truth.
Or into falseness.
Or into falseness. And that action is complete, it's over. I don't know if I'm conveying it. That action is whole. There is no regret, there is no personal advantage, there is no emotional, etc. It is an action that is complete.
Yes.
Whereas the action brought about by thought into the investigation of and analysis, if there is God, if there is no God, is always incomplete.
Yes, I mean, I understand that. Now, we have to get clear. Now, then there's another action in which you do use words, where you try to realize the insight. Let's say you talk to people.
Yes.
Now, is that complete or incomplete then? You see, you have discovered about God, right?
Yes.
Now you see other people are still caught in this.
Yes.
And therefore you immediately...
No, but the man speaks from an insight.
He speaks from an insight, but at the same time he starts a process of time, right?
Yes, that's right.
Right. Now,
to convey something, of
to
course.
convey something,
of
to
course,
change things.
Of course.
Yes, and now let's consider that just to get it clear. You see that it's starting from an insight, but it is conveying truth. I mean.
Yes, but it's always starting from an insight.
Yes. And in doing that, you may have to organize it.
Oh, I mean, that's of course.
Yes,
All the rest follows.
Yes.
And the action of a reasoned thought is different from the action of insight.
Now, what is the difference when insight is conveyed through reasoned thought? Do you see, let's say you come to your insight again about God, and you have to convey it to other people, and you must put it in a reasonable form and so on.
I understand, of course.
And therefore, isn't there still some of the quality of the insight as you convey it?
Quality of the insight.
Well, you have the insight into God, you see.
Yes, insight into God. Good idea.
And now you must find a reasonable way to communicate it, right? Because if you don't, people will say, Now, and therefore, in doing that, some of this, the truth of the insight is still being communicated in this form.
Yes.
I'm trying to say that right.
Yes.
And in some sense, that is thought.
No, but you see, I have an insight into it, and I act because God is meaningless to me.
Yes, and your action.
But wait a minute. But in conveying to another verbally that insight, his action may be...
Or he may be incomplete.
Incomplete. His action will be incomplete unless he has an insight.
That's right. So you must convey what will give him an insight.
Yes. Can you give an insight?
No, not really. But I mean, whatever you convey must somehow...
Yes.
Start something. Which,
yes. That can only happen when you yourself have dropped.
What? Yes, when you have dropped it, but there's no guarantee that it will.
Oh, no, of course.
Now, and it depends on the other person whether he's ready to listen and so
listen.
on. And that may depend partly on
So we'll come back to the point that is there a thinking which is non-verbal? That's what we began.
Yeah, well, it depends on how we use language. I would say there is a thinking which conveys the insight that is non-verbal. The thinking itself is not non-verbal, you see, since...
I don't quite understand.
Well, look, there is the thinking which is dominated by the word, which just...
Yes, I understand that.
Right, now, there's another thinking whose order is determined not by the word, you see, but by the insight.
I see. Is insight the product of thought?
No, but insight works in through thought or
Ah,
through any
that's
action.
different. That's
Yeah.
different, yes.
Yeah.
But
Insight is never the product of thought.
no, absolutely not.
But it may work through thought. Now, I wanted to say that thought through which insight is working has a different order from the thought,
I see. Quite.
and I want to distinguish those two.
Yes, quite.
I think you once gave an example in the past of a drum with,
Oh, yes.
vibrating from the emptiness within. Now, I took it to mean that the skin was like the action of the thought.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, that's. So, how does insight take place? Because if it is not the product of thought, not the process of organized thought and all the rest of it, then how does this insight come into being?
Well, it's not clear what you mean by the question. I mean,
How do I have an insight that God is a projection of our own desires, images, and so on?
no.
And I see the falseness of it, or the truth of it. Now, how does it take place?
Well, I don't see how you could expect to describe it, you see.
I will let. Is it? You see, I have a feeling, or insight, or whatever I call it, that thought cannot possibly enter into an area where inside truth is.
Yes.
It operates anywhere else. But true or that area can operate through thought.
Yes.
But thought cannot enter that area.
Yes, that seems clear. That we say thought is the response of memory, which is some material
Yes.
process.
Yes.
Then we could say that that cannot be unconditioned and free, you see.
Yes, that cannot. No. So, then what is non-verbal thinking?
Well, I just said the non-verbal, the expression of thought, that thought which expresses some non-verbal insight, whose order is some non-verbal insight.
Yes.
You see, I think if you say non-verbal thinking, it's not clear what you mean, because the word thinking already
implies verb.
It implies something going on in the domain of thought alone.
Right. Sorry.
So if the word thinking implies an activity by thought alone, but I'm trying precisely to discuss an activity not by thought alone, do you see? So therefore we might use the word nonverbal thought, which is a little bit
confusing.
Yeah.
Yes.
You see, that is a thought process whose ordering or origin is nonverbal. You see.
Yes.
Or from beyond somewhere.
Yes. I would like to go into this question, if I may. How does this insight take place? If it is not the process of thought, then what is the quality of a mind or quality of observation in which thought doesn't enter? And because it doesn't enter, you have an insight. Am I making or am I using words wrongly?
Well,
we said insight is complete. It is not fragmented as thought is. So thought cannot bring about an insight.
No, well, no, I mean, the thought may communicate
Communicate the insight.
or it may communicate some of the data which lead you to an insight. You see, for example, people told you about religion and so on. You know, in other words, but eventually the insight depends on something which is not thought. I mean,
Yeah. Insight is not dependent on thought,
Yeah.
right? Then how does that insight come? Is it a cessation of thought?
well, it could be looked at as sensation.
Is it thought itself realizes that it cannot enter into certain area? That is, the thinker is the thought.
Yes.
The observer experience all the rest of it. And thought itself realizes, aware that it can only function within certain area.
Doesn't that itself require insight?
People,
Before thought realizes that there must be an insight.
that's just it.
Well,
That's just it. Does thought realize there must be insight?
well, I don't know, but I'm trying to say that there would have to be insight into the nature of thought
Yes.
before
Yeah.
thought would realize
Yeah,
anything.
that's right.
Because thought by itself cannot realize anything, can it?
Nothing.
Or understand.
Yes.
Right.
We understand. We're coming to something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But in some way, as we said, truth can operate in thought, you see, or
Yes.
in reality.
Yes. Thought. I mean, truth can operate in the field of reality.
Yes.
Right. Now, how does one's mind see the truth? What is is it a process? Is it a...
I see. The meaning of your question is that you're asking whether there's a process of seeing, right?
Yes. What is the
But I
process?
mean, is that there's no process then.
That's what I...
because that
Yeah.
would be time again.
Yes, the timing. That's right.
But I would like to see, let's consider a certain point that there is an insight, right, that about the nature of thought, with the observer is the observed and so on.
That's clear.
Now, there's a question. You see, in some sense, thought must accept that insight. Do you see, or carry it, or another respond to it?
Or the insight is so vital,
Yes.
so energetic, full of vitality,
Yeah.
it forces thought to operate.
All right, then there's the necessity to operate.
Yes, necessity.
All right, now, that's fine, but you see, generally speaking, it doesn't have that. You see, we get into a circle because it doesn't have that vitality, and then you say, why not?
Then
Because it's thought,
of
right?
course, of course.
In other words, so in some indirect way, thought has rejected the insight, you see. At least it appears to be so.
So most people have an insight, but habit is so strong, they reject the insight.
Yes, I understand that, you see. And I'm trying to get to the bottom of it, see, to find out, to see if we can break through that rejection. Do you see what I mean?
They break through the rejection, break through the habit, the conditioning, which
Yeah.
prevents the insight.
Yeah.
Though one may have an insight, the conditioning is so strong, you reject the insight.
Yes. Yes, you see,
This is what happens.
That's what happens. And you see, I looked up the word habit,
Yeah.
and it says a settled disposition of the mind, you see, which I think is very good to say.
Which is,
a
what is that?
settled disposition.
Disposition of the mind.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been disposed in a certain fixed way,
Yes.
which resists change, you see.
Yes.
Now, but now we're back, you see, but then, you see, we would get caught in the same question, how are we going to break that
yeah,
very settled disposition.
Yeah, quite.
I mean, it's sort of like concrete, you see.
I don't think you can break it.
No.
I don't think thought can break it.
No, but I mean, you were asking for that intense insight,
Yes,
which necessarily dissolves it, you see. I mean,
that's right. May I go just a little bit over it? One has an insight into truth and reality. One's mind has lived, disposed, and formed habits and all that in the world of reality. It lives there.
yes, and it's very rigid.
Rigid. Right. You come along and point out the rigidity of that. I catch a glimpse of what you're saying, which is non-thinking.
Yes, I catch a glimpse.
I see it
In a glimpse only.
in a glimpse. But this conditioning is so strong, I reject it.
Yeah, I don't do it purposely, it just happens.
It's happened.
Right.
Because you help to create that happening. Is that glimpse, first of all, strong enough to dissolve this? And if it is not strong, then it goes on. Can this conditioning dissolve you see, that's it. I must have an insight into the conditioning. Otherwise I can't dissolve it.
Yes, maybe we could look at it like this, that this conditioning is a reality.
Yes.
A very solid reality.
Very solid.
And which is fundamentally what we think about.
Yes, what we think about, quite right.
Now, ordinarily when I look at reality, I don't think it's what I think about, you see. I say it's what is.
Yes, yes.
Right. It's true or actual. And you see, I've been looking at that to say that ordinary reality is not only what I think about, but it fits to actuality to some extent, the actual fact. Now, that's the proof of its
I understand that.
reality. Now, at first sight, it seems this conditioning is just as solid as any reality.
Quite.
It's not more so.
Much more so. Quite. Is that conditioning dissolved, comes to an end through thinking?
Well, it won't, because thinking is what it is, do you see?
Yes, so thinking won't. Then what will?
Well, we're back again, you see, we see that it's only truth, insight. If we can see there's something false
I
there,
think so, something takes place.
Yes.
I see I'm conditioned. And I separate myself from the conditioning.
Yes.
I am different from the conditioning. And you come along and say, no, it isn't like that. The observer is the observed.
Yes.
If I can see or have an insight that the observer is the observed, then the conditioning begins to dissolve.
Yes. Because then it's not solid.
There is no conflict, all the rest of it takes place.
Yes, you see, if you say reality is what I think about, now I am the thinker who is thinking about the conditioning. Right?
Of course.
Right, and now...
That's right.
If I say that I can see the thinker is the thought, you see, that in other words, the thought of the conditioning is the thinking process itself.
Is there quite?
And therefore, the thought is projecting the conditioning as if it were some reality that was not thought, do you see?
Yes.
It seems very
Yes.
solid.
Yes.
But in fact, it is thought, do you see?
Yes. What takes place, if I, who have been in the habit disposed and all the rest of it, that the observer is different from the observer, what takes place when I realize or see, have an insight that the observer is the observed? What takes place? Then does thought enter into that? I'm putting it wrongly. What takes place when you show me or give me or help me to have an insight into the observer is the observed? What takes place in me when I see that?
Right. I mean, I see that the conditioning is nothing. You see that it is not.
No. No, I
not
won't.
when-
No. The perception of that
Yes.
is the ending of the condition.
Yes. Well,
I
because
d- yeah.
One sees that the conditioning is not.
I can
what
explain
was,
after it.
Yeah.
The fact, the reality, the truth is, when there is the realization that the observer is the observed, then in that realization, which is truth, the conditioning disappears.
Yes.
How does it disappear? What is necessary for the crumbling of that structure?
Well, I think that it's merely that there's the insight into the falseness of them, is it?
I can have an insight, so that's it. I can have an insight into something that falls, and I go on that way. Go along the falls,
Well,
accept the falls, and live in the falls.
Yes. Well,
I don't know if I'm conveying something. So, I want to bring it.
well, it's not merely that it's false, but
I want to bring it into
Yeah.
action, my life.
uh-huh.
I've accepted reality as truth.
Yes. Well, now we.
Just
Yes.
a minute.
Right.
I've accepted it. I live in that.
Yes.
And my gods, my habits, my everything, I live in that. You come along and say, look, truth is different from reality. And you explain to me. How will I break that tremendous life, that tremendous weight, or put away that tremendous conditioning? I need energy
Yes.
to break that conditioning. Does the energy come when the observer is the observed? I don't know. Because I see the importance rationally that the condition must break down. And I reason, I see the necessity of it, I see how it operates, what the division, the conflict, and all the rest of it involved. Now, when I realize that the observer is the observed, there's a totally different kind of energy comes into being.
Yeah.
That's all I want to get at. Right, sir?
Yes. It's not the energy of reality then.
Energy of reality. That's
So I feel it better when I say the thinker is not the thought. I don't know that.
yes,
It's the same thing, really.
same thing, yes. Thinker is not. Right.
I mean, the thinker is the thought, rather.
Yes, thinker is the thought. Now, is that energy different from the energy of condition and the activity of the conditioning and reality. And is that energy the perception of truth? And therefore it has quite a different quality of energy.
Yes, that seems it's the quality of this empty space.
Yes, that's
and of and being free, you see.
Yes.
Not being bound by the conditioning.
Yes. Now admit, I want to make it practical to myself. I see this. I see this whole thing that you have described to me. And I've got a fairly good mind. I can argue, I can explain it, all that. But this quality of energy doesn't come in. And you want me to have that quality. Because it's out of your compassion, out of your understanding of your perception of truth and so on. Say, please, see that. And I can't see it. Because I'm always living in the realm of reality. You are living in the realm of truth. And I can't, there is no relationship between you and me. I accept your words. I see the reason of it. I see the logic of it. I see the actuality of it. But I can't break it down. I don't know if I'm...
Yeah.
How will you help me? Please, I'm using that word hesitantly. How can you help me to break this down? It's your job. I don't know. Because you see truth and I don't. And you say, for God's sake, see this. How will you help me? Through words? Then we enter into the, of which I'm quite familiar. This is actually going on, you understand, sir? So what is one to do? What will you do with me who refuses to see something which is just there? And you point out, as long as we live in this world of reality, there's going to be murder, death, everything will go on there. There's no answer in that realm for any of our problems. So how will you convey this to me? Hold my hand?
No,
I want to find out.
Yes.
I'm very keen. I want to get out of this, but I don't know. This is our problem, sir. You come here, I come here. We talk to students. You tell them something, I tell them something. But the weight of their conditioning, of their desires, of their youthfulness, which is wasted on them. You follow?
Yes.
And how will you say, for God's sake, get out?
Well, it's only possible to communicating the intensity, it seems. I mean, I say we already have discussed all the other factors that are discommunicated.
You see, what you say has no system, no method, because they're all part of the... You say something totally new, unexpected, which I haven't even given a single moment of thought. You come along with a basket full, and I don't know how to receive you. So you are concerned. I don't know. Sorry. So how will you operate there? So this has been really a problem, of the prophets of of Edward.
Well, nobody seems has really succeeded. I mean, it's
nobody has. It's part of the education that keeps us constantly in the world in the realm of reality.
Yes, well, and that identification of reality and truth.
Yes, of course, always.
Yes, I understand. I say everybody's expecting a path marked out in the field of reality.
You see, you talk of a totally different kind of energy from the energy of reality.
Yes.
And you say that energy will wipe all this out, but it will use this reality.
Yes, it will work through
it. It will work this. And it's all words to me. Because society, education, economics, my parents, everything is here. All the scientists are working here, all the professors, all the economy, everybody is there. You are there and you say, look. And I refuse to look.
Well, it's not even a refusal, it's just something more unconscious.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't say that we can see a solution. I only accept to present the thing with more effectiveness. That's...
You can more effectiveness with greater oratory, with greater feelings, but something doesn't take place.
Yeah, I understand that.
The Tibetan, and also there is a part of Hindu tradition. Correct me, sir, if I'm wrong. That those who are free, in the big sense of that word, never go beyond, never disappear. They are there. Sorry, disappear in the sense, I didn't want to use traditional language. You've heard of Maitreya.
Great master.
It's in Hindu tradition. And in the Tibetan tradition, I don't know, I've been told a great deal about it, by those who seem to know or studied it, that there is a Maitreya who said, I will not leave this world of suffering till I help mankind to get out of it.
Yes. Is that like the Buddha?
Like the Buddha. And the tradition says that Maitreya is constantly observing to help people. That's his only concern. To not to become more religious and more this and more that, but to drop everything. To go beyond the reality. And you can wait till doomsday, nobody's going to do it. I don't.
Yeah. Well, what does the tradition say as to how it's going to happen?
Tradition says, life after life, life
Plenty
after
of time. Well, there may or may not be.
That's why you follow.
Mm.
So when we are discussing this, when we are talking about this, what is there a thinking which is not in the realm of reality?
Well, what do you mean by that?
Hmm?
See, because we were just saying about thought before, that,
Yes.
well, perhaps we shouldn't use the word thinking because that seems
Yes.
to imply...
Then what word would you use?
Well, you might use the word thought, which...
Thought.
Yeah. Well, it's not, that's in the sense of the response of the drum.
Yes, sir. I think that's a good simile. Because it is empty, it's vibrating.
The material thing is vibrating to the emptiness.
Yes,
That's,
material thing vibrating. Wait a minute, let's wait. Is reality nothingness? I mean, truth, nothingness.
yes, I think. I mean, we were discussing that last time.
Yeah.
That
Truth is nothing.
yes, because if it's
No.
not reality, it must be no thing.
No thing. Therefore, empty.
Yes.
Empty being. Didn't you say?
Leisure is the word.
Leisure.
Leisure means empty,
Leisure.
basically.
Emptiness is leisure.
Yes. The English root of empty means leisure, unoccupied.
Unoccupied. So you are saying to me, your mind must be unoccupied.
Yes.
It mustn't be occupied by reality.
Yes, that's clear. But
So it must be empty. It must be, there mustn't be a thing in it which is being put together by reality, by thought, by the nothing means that nothing,
yes.
which has not been put, which has been put in the mind as thought, right?
Yes, it's clear. It's just everything is what we think about, and
Yes.
therefore we have to say the mind does not think about anything. Is that?
Yes, that's right. That means thought cannot think about emptiness.
No, because it would make a thing.
Of course, that's just it. You see, again, tradition says, Hindu tradition says, you can come to it.
Yeah, we discussed that last time. I
Yeah,
think.
I'm putting it aside.
Yes, because you must come. Anything to come to must be by a path which is marked out in reality.
Of course. Now, I see, I have an insight into that. I see it. I see my mind must be unoccupied.
Yes.
Must have no inhabitants. Must be an empty house. Right, sir?
Yes.
What is the action of that in my life, in one's life? What is the action of that emptiness in my life? Because I must live here. I don't know why, but I must live here. I want to find out, is that action different from the other action? It must be.
It
And
has to
therefore,
be. I say it has to be.
it has to be. And how am I to empty my mind, the content of which makes up consciousness? How am I to empty the content? Content is reality. Right, sir?
Yes.
My consciousness is a reality.
Yes, the consciousness is reality.
Yeah.
It's not really consciousness of reality.
No, oh no, consciousness is reality.
Yes.
We are getting something. And how is that content to be emptied so that it is not a reality, let's put it there.
Yes, there would be. There'd be no thing.
No
So
thing.
it should be no thing.
No. How is it to be done?
We've often gone into this question, how already.
Of course,
is
how
wrong.
is
There's something wrong with the question.
Of course. Something is wrong because the very word how means
Yes.
real and thought and all the rest of it. Do a miracle.
Well, that's what we need.
No, it's do a miracle. How can you do a miracle to a man, or bring about a miracle in a man who lives in this, with the content? You fellows, I'm trying to find out is there any action which will dissolve the whole content? I don't. I think the difference is consciousness is not of reality. Consciousness is reality.
It is reality.
That I think is
well, let's try to make it more clear. Consciousness is ordinarily felt to reflect reality.
Yes. Yes, that again duality and all.
Yes, it is reality. In some way, you see, I think we should make it clear that consciousness in some way reflects on what is actual. I mean, that, for example, we have the reality of the table in our minds and we may see its actual
Quite.
effect. And now, so that consciousness is some peculiar combination of reality and actuality, as far as I can see. That
Yes. I accept that. I see that.
And what we need is, I mean, if I could put it, that we need instead actuality, truth and actuality. You see, could I say we need? You see that the emptiness works in actuality from truth. You see that.
Yes.
That the act of emptiness.
The act of emptiness
is actuality too.
is actuality. Yes.
But there are two kinds of actuality.
Yes. That's just it.
Right.
Yes. Quite.
The empty mind appears to be like in a computer-like state. It doesn't answer unless questioned. At all other times it is empty. It acts on the memory, its technical part, or in reality. But if not asked, or if not challenged, it stays in a state of emptiness.
No, but we are not in a state of emptiness. One's mind is not in a state of emptiness. It's always occupied. my problems, my desires, my sex, my money, no money, my God, what people. It's occupied. It's never empty.
Are you saying that when we start from where we are, then we can't say such a thing? Is that what you're implying?
What is that?
Uh,
Yes, he's implying that.
I mean, well, now that when we start from where we are, it will not be much use to discuss how the empty mind will act. Is that what you're? Because you say our mind is now occupied.
Yes. Now, your mind, your mind is not occupied. I'm saying your mind is not occupied. But that unoccupied mind lives in reality.
Well, it acts in reality.
Acts in reality, acts in reality. Its actions must be different from the etc. We know. It's one-way relationship, move, as we said the other day.
Yes, well, we want to clear that up in the sense that you are continually gaining information from this field of reality.
Yes, of course.
But it is not affecting you deeply, I would try to put it like
It
that.
is not affecting that emptiness.
Not affecting it in depth, it merely carries information.
Yes, that's right.
Whereas conditioning affects you deeply, influence affects you deeply. That's the difference.
Yes.
When ordinary consciousness is influenced by reality, is that?
We said consciousness is reality.
But it is also all the influences. Let's put it that it is the field of influence. See, that the conditioning
is the field of influence, yes.
Yes, so information may influence you.
Of course it does. But it's still...
Right. But it does not influence the emptiness.
No,
Right.
no, that's right.
It leaves, as you were saying once, it leaves no mark on the emptiness. Right?
See, after all, sir, one is seeking complete security. That's what one wants. And one is seeking security in reality.
Yes.
And therefore, one rejects any other security.
Yes, I think there's a conviction that reality is all there is. It's the same as truth, and that's the only place you could find it.
You come along and say, look, in nothingness there is complete security.
Yes, now let's discuss that, because at first sight it may seem very implausible, you see.
Of course,
Because, well, not only because nothing is,
Yes.
is nothing, but also...
No, just a minute, sir. Just a minute. I say to you, if I may, in nothingness there is complete security and stability.
Yes.
You listen, and you get an insight into it. Because you are attentive, there's a conversation which is going on, and you say, but that is so. But your mind, which is occupied, says, what the dickens is this?
Well, perhaps it would be more like this, to say it sounds reasonable on one side, but on the other side you do have to take care of your real material needs.
Of course, that's understood.
See, in other words, there arises a conflict, because you could say that it appears reasonable what you're proposing, but this doesn't take care of your material needs.
Of course.
You're not secure, you see.
Therefore they call it the world of reality, Maya.
Why is that? What's the connection?
Huh?
How do you make the connection?
Because they say to live there is necessary in emptiness, and if you live there, you consider the world as Maya.
Well, that's
and we've been through that.
Yes, but no, you could say all that stuff is illusion, but then you would find that you were in danger, you see, hungry and so on.
Of course.
Right, so now you seem to be calling for confidence that nothingness will take care of you physically and in every way. You see that? In other words, from nothingness you say there is security.
No, in nothingness.
In nothingness there is security. And this security must include physical security. At least the way
No,
it
I
does
say
it.
psychological security
Yes,
first.
all right, yes. But but the question always immediately arises.
How am I to be secure in the world of
secure-
reality?
Yes, you see, because one could say, all right, I accept that will remove my psychological problems.
Yes.
But I still have to be physically secure in the world of
Yeah.
reality.
Therefore, if there is no psychological security in reality, but only complete security in nothingness,
Yes.
then if that is so, if that is a reality to me, then my whole activity in the world of reality is entirely different.
When I see that, but see, the question will always be raised: is it different enough to really?
Oh yes, it will be totally different, because
Yeah.
I'm not national, I'm not English, nothing.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's our whole world is different. I
Yes.
don't divide
Let's say we bring back your example of the one who, say, understands, and the one who wants to communicate it to the other.
yes.
And somehow, what doesn't communicate there is the assurance that it will take care of all that.
And it won't take care of all.
I want to get it clear. You see.
It won't take care. I have to work here.
Yes. All right. Well, we have to begin. You see, because if you just say what you said, there's a sort of an implication that you will be completely from nothing. In nothingness, you will be completely secure in every way. Now,
That is so, absolutely.
yes, but now we have to ask, what about the physical security?
Physical
In the field of
security,
reality.
reality, at present I have no security.
Yeah.
I'm fighting all my life. Right?
Yes.
I'm battling economically, socially, religiously. If I am inwardly, psychologically completely secure, then my activity in the world of realities is born of complete intelligence,
Yes.
which doesn't exist now, because that intelligence is the perception of the whole, and so on, so on, so on. Now, as long as I'm English, I cannot have security, and so on, so on. So I must work to get rid of that.
Yes. Well, I can see that. Let's say that as you become more intelligent, you become more secure, of course. But when you say complete security, there's always the question: is it complete? You see.
Oh, it is complete psychologically.
No, but not necessarily physically. You're saying.
No, but that feeling of complete security inwardly makes me
It makes you do the right thing.
right thing in the world of reality.
Yes, I see that. I mean, I would rather put you can be the most secure that you can possibly be if you're completely intelligent. But
Yeah.
you cannot guarantee that nothing is going to happen to you.
Oh, of course. But I don't mind.
You don't mind because
I have
of
no
psychological
fear.
security.
Yeah.
In other words, you say, even if something happens to me, it does not deeply affect
That's
your
right. No,
emptiness.
of course not.
Yes.
My mind is rooted or established in nothingness.
Yes.
And it operates in the field of reality with intelligence.
Yes.
And that intelligence says, there, old boy, you cannot have security unless you do these things.
You've got to do everything right.
Everything right.
Yes.
In everything right, according to that intelligence, which is the etc.
Yeah.
of truth,
Yes.
of nothingness.
And if something does happen to you, nevertheless, you still are secure. I mean, if you could say...
Of course.
Uh,
If my house burns down, but you see, we are seeking security here in the world of reality.
yes, I understand that.
Therefore, there is no security.
Yes. I mean, as long as one feels that the world of reality is the whole, all there is, you have to seek it there.
Of course.
Now, and therefore, and one can see that, in fact, in the world of reality, there's no security. Everything, depends on other things which are unknown and so on. Now, and that's why there's this intense fear. not what's called for, what's necessary.
Sir,
Right.
you mentioned fear. In nothingness, there's complete security. There is therefore no fear.
Yes.
But that sense of no fear has a totally different kind of activity in the world of reality. I have no fear. I walk. I have no fear. I won't be rich or poor. I walk. I walk not as an Englishman, German, Arab, all the rest of that nonsense. I walk there intelligently. Therefore, I'm creating security in the world of reality.
Yeah. You're making
For
everybody. You're making it as secure as it may possibly be, you
Yeah,
see.
of course.
I mean, the more clear and intelligent you are, the more secure it is. I mean,
Yeah. Because inwardly I'm secure,
Yes.
outwardly I create security.
Yes, because on the other hand, if I feel inwardly I depend on the world of reality, then I become disorganized inwardly.
Of course.
But everybody, of course, everybody does feel that he depends on the world of reality.
So the next thing is, you tell me this, and I don't see that. I don't see the extraordinary beauty or the feeling or the depth of this saying complete inward security.
Yes, I mean, I think that, possibly this sort of notion is present among people, but they get so many bad experiences that it gets lost, you see.
Wait a minute,
I mean, implicitly there's a feeling that if you were really right inside, nothing can harm you. You see, I think this notion, I've seen many people express this idea, especially when I was younger, but then, so many things happen, and gradually it gets...
I am not sure, sir.
Well, I'm not sure people really understand it, but I'm saying there is a sort of an idea.
That's an idea.
Yes, it's a notion of some sort.
That's it. There's a notion. That's
Yes,
quite...
I mean, in other words, a sort of a faint echo of this.
I don't want an echo.
No, of course not.
So
I'm
therefore I said, look, how are you going to give that beauty of that to me? See, that's... So talking about, for the moment, different thing. What subject or what is the thing we're going to discuss with all the scientists?
Oh, well, we haven't considered that. I was going to.
Sorry, just came to me.
Yes. I mean, I was going to ask you about that because, you see, one question is, what to discuss, and also, what the form should be, and so on.
We better stop here for the time.
Yes, well, yes,
What time is it?
It's 10 minutes to
5?
5 minutes to 5. I thought that's sufficient, isn't it?
Jeez.
Yes, I mean,
That's enough. Now what should we talk about?
you turned it off. Are you going to record it or what?
It's off. It's not necessary to record this.